Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and joining me tonight, as always, is my sidekick Austin, and it's time for yet another volume of our top 100 favorite superhero movies of all time list. We are back after a week's hiatus or so, and Austin, this is part 11, I think. So it would be really, really cool if we could cap this off at 12 like we did with the history videos, but I think it's more likely we're looking at 14 or 15, but we'll see what happens here. We're gonna try to go longer tonight than we have in the previous. I can't remember if we just did an hour or two last time. It's been a little while.
I think
but
just an hour.
We've been hitting just an hour a lot lately, so we've been going through like 5 apiece. So we'll see if we can do double that tonight. We'll do our level best. No promises or anything. We could start going a little bit quicker now because you're going to hear a lot of repeats. But there's also the fact that we won't necessarily remember what we've said. It's been so long. Anyway, Austin, it's great to see you. I have massively enjoyed the series, which is part of the reason it's taking so long, because we get real in the weeds with it. It's really fun to go back and reminisce about all of these movies and to try to explain sometimes where they line up in a list, because sometimes we don't even understand it.
No, I feel like my list is like objectively the correct one, and anyone else is wrong. So I understand my list.
Your list is objectively the correct one in the Twilight Zone. You share the same universe as like the DCEU, or just nothing really makes sense.
Hey, now that's just an insult.
Well, you know, they don't make sense, but in very dissimilar ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair enough.
Good to see everybody. Thanks for joining live. Appreciate you watching after the fact if you're doing that. I see a lot of folks in the comments there. Let's go ahead and get right straight into it, shall we? Austin, we last left off. You went back and checked, and I appreciate that, at 35, you said?
Well, I was going off memory, but now I'm looking at my 34, and I'm like, did I talk about it, or did I just talk about it when you said it?
Oh, I thought you actually went back and looked.
No, I just went off memory.
We tend to leave off at a good even numbers, so...
Yeah, there's been a couple of times we haven't, so I'm just going to go with my 34 just to be safe.
Not a mathematically even number, mind you, but... Well, when you say... You know what? Now, when you say we left off at 30, I didn't think we'd set our 35s yet.
No, we definitely did, because my 35 was Unbreakable, yours was Turtles Forever. And
no, my 36 was Turtles Forever. My 35, and I'll just go ahead and say it and then tell me if we talked about it. I should have gone back, excuse me, I should have gone back and looked. My 35 was Return of the Joker.
I don't remember if we talked about it because you said it. Or actually, you know what? No, that's correct because it's not on my list, and we did talk about it. So you did say Return of the Joker.
Okay, all right. Well, then you're right. And
yeah,
we actually hit 35. Okay.
Well,
So let's just let's just assume we did. Return of the Joker is my 35. No, if we didn't talk about it, nobody's going to be that surprised that it's a little higher. Some people might be surprised it's as low as it is, honestly.
Mm-hmm. No, because I think we talked about it because you were like, oh, it's Return of the Joker and, like whatever about Batman Beyond. And I was like, oh, I didn't even make my list.
Oh, yeah, maybe we did talk, because you're not a Batman Beyond guy. You've never really sat through that series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
You seem to enjoy it okay when we did the rewind on it.
I think I gave it like a hero. Like, it's just okay.
Sure.
My favorite thing of that movie has always just been the flashback, and then outside of that, I don't really care. But
oh yeah, no, you're right. We did talk about this.
Yeah. So I guess I'll do my 34 because I'm pretty sure that we just talked about it on your list. My 34 is Hellboy 2, which is, I think I said last time when you brought it up, the Batman Returns of Hellboy, and that they like completely go off the rails of the comics, and it's just Del Toro doing his thing, and it ends up being a better movie for it. But not what I want in a Hellboy movie, but it's still just a good movie.
Yep. That's maybe about where I would have expected the placement from you.
Well, it was higher, and I think I mentioned this when you brought it up.
Maybe you said this already, because Tyler says we talked about Under the Red Hood last, and that is my 34.
Oh, okay, so I was right. So we did talk about our 34s. Okay.
We talked about our 34s. Okay.
Okay. So my 33 is Captain America: Civil War, which is just a very solid movie, a very good team movie. I like it more than the like Avengers movies, I'd say, because it has more of a plot that is like kind of about things, and it's not as event driven.
I was gonna say, I know you don't see it as much of an Avengers movie as I do, but if it had Avengers in the title, it would probably be my favorite of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
I say that. Watch there be an Avengers movie above it on my list, but there shouldn't be.
Sorry, I'm dog sitting and he's about to start barking because he wants out.
Wow, you really lined this up really well, Austin. I appreciate that.
Sorry.
We're off to a spectacular start here.
Happens every time I'm dog sitting.
I think we've managed to waste everybody's time in about 3 different ways so far.
I know, right? You gotta love how we find new ways to just be the absolute worst.
Yeah, somebody in the comments said that we haven't been very consistent, which is part of the charm. Played out.
Exactly.
But I don't know if he's talking about just like when we've been broadcasting these, but that's how we've always done this sort of series, is we just sneak them in when we've got an extra slot.
Yeah, exactly.
Like with the history videos. And this will not be the last of this kind of series we do either.
Yeah, so with Civil War, I feel like there was a time where I put Infinity War over it, but at this point I think I like Civil War a lot more than that. And it's also oddly the MCU movie I've lived with the most.
Interesting.
Yeah, like before I moved out of my mom's house, it was like consistently the one where I was like, oh, do you want to watch a Marvel movie? Oh, Civil War. So I feel like I've seen that movie like a billion times, to the point where I'm like a little bit like, I don't need to watch it. But it is really good.
I still, and pardon the word choice, marvel at the way that movie manages to juggle its ridiculous character count, and they continue to try to top that afterwards, but we never manage it quite as well as Civil War. People are talking about how character driven that movie is in the comments. Like, it's impressive how it's I know you and I look at this movie a little bit differently. We're like, is it a singular character piece, or is it a dual protagonist movie? Is Tony Stark the other protagonist on the opposite side, or is he the villain of the movie? However you want to look at it, it's about those two guys more than it's about anything.
Which is the big thing I think disqualifies it as an Avengers film, is they all get taken out in the second act.
Oh, I see. I see what you mean.
Them.
Well, that makes sense.
Because
that's actually the best argument I've heard, and I don't know if you've ever actually thrown that at me.
I definitely have, because that's like one of the main ones I go to. Because I'm like, if you were to go see that and it was called Avengers Civil War, everyone would be mad that all the Avengers get taken out like in the second act.
Okay, and I don't know why I've never really had. If I've had that thought, I haven't appreciated it as much as I am at this moment.
which is funny because
Because that's not how I look at it. Or what I mean is, if Avengers was in the title, it wouldn't disappoint me because I like you know me, I'm not a big superhero team guy anyway. So
yeah.
I like really focusing on a couple or a few characters and let everybody else be supporting cast. And that movie does that really well. But also, everybody, if not like full-blown arcs, still gets, you know, not just moments, but like really serious, important things to do and feel like they all help to drive the story. And it's such a good blend of tones, too. Like, would you agree? That's one of, if not the best examples of a Marvel movie actually integrating its humor well.
For the most part, there are definitely moments where I think the tone gets like really hit. You have moments like when Spider-Man first comes in and we stop to do like a comedic bit, and then Tony like light switches back into dramatic, and you get like a couple moments like that. But for the most part, I'd agree.
I guess for whatever reason, that doesn't bother me as much when it's just all the superheroes together. You know, where it's like
some of the light stuff in that fight, I think, is really appreciated. Where we're not fighting to the death. Like some of the stuff between Natasha and Clint, I think, work in that way.
There's a camaraderie. There's a dance. Like they don't hate each other.
And then you have the best Black Panther, where he's just out for blood.
Yeah, it's great.
He's so good.
Well, and I was gonna say too, you also get two great character introductions.
Yes.
In that movie. Like, how does that movie manage to juggle all of that so well? Where we introduce both Black Panther and Spider-Man. Like, what a freaking tall order.
Yeah, and for me, like I said, that's the best their Black Panther ever was. And then I think they do a really good job summing up Spider-Man in like 5 minutes.
Robert says people would have also been disappointed that Thor and Hulk weren't in it. Yeah, that's fair, too.
No,
and
that's true, too.
I don't mean to get stuck on this point again, because we always go here when Austin and I talk about this movie. For me, it was always less it should have Avengers in the title. I guess I'm just saying, it always felt a little bit like an Avengers movie because so many of those characters get things to do. But more of it is, I just never completely bought it as a straight-up Captain America movie. And it does all of that stuff well. It's just there's so much else there, and we're introducing characters to the whole universe in a Captain America movie. And so, I don't know. It ends up just being a semantics issue where I feel like you could have just called it Marvel Civil War and you're done.
Yeah, I mean, you like probably could have done that. I don't disagree with that. I've just always said like it is a Captain America movie before it's an Avengers movie.
Sure. But whatever, it's great. I also have
one of the places where we got saved by the terrible creative committee, where they were like, "This movie has to end with them fighting the super soldiers," and instead we got a way more interesting climax.
Yeah, thank God.
That's one of those movies that is so built on just like, you know, the best possible outcome, where there was like 18 things that could have happened and so many different possibilities, and we somehow ended up with like the better version of that movie. Like there's versions of that script without Iron Man and stuff like that.
Weird.
Yeah, like it was very
we dodged a lot of bullets there, it sounds like, because of course
that's not a part of Downey's contract. Like they had to get him to agree to do that outside of his contract.
And then how interesting is it that he goes on to be the big supporting mentor character in Spider-Man?
Yeah, and they had to make versions without Spider-Man. They had to make versions, like, just so many different things that could have gone wrong with that movie, and it just, you know, paid off for them.
Well, and to be fair, I think there are other versions, if they'd had to leave certain things out or put other things in, that would have still been good, but I imagine that's the best version we could have possibly
of Civil War,
expected of Civil War. Yeah, because
you'd have to pivot to a different thing completely.
I don't feel like that movie lives or dies by Spider-Man. Like I think that movie could be fine without him, but I also think that it just gives a lot of added flavor, and it gives it a lot of credibility in making it feel even more Marvel-y, if that makes any sense, where it's like at the exact point that the politics of this seem to be breaking down, and maybe superheroes can't even be a thing anymore. We're going back to the most popular classic Marvel character that we haven't been allowed to use, and he's part of helping save it. I really like that.
Well, and it's just funny that it's, a plot from the comics that was, our public, like our identities will be public in a
Yeah.
universe where everyone is public, and then we introduce Spider-Man, and that has nothing to do with the
No, that's
plot,
true. And then
which
he'll
is
end
kind of
up
funny.
public later. I guess what I said a minute ago is not quite right because he doesn't actually help save the whole superhero thing because he's on the other side. But
Mhm. He doesn't know what's up.
he has no idea what's up. But
Mhm.
but it does feel like getting back to superhero brass tacks and bringing him in is all I'm saying.
Yeah, and
Uh,
it's a cool way to introduce him when you have, an Amazing Spider-Man #1. You have him fighting the FF.
that movie, and obviously I haven't brought it up yet, so it's gonna be higher on my list. But I have in a massive affinity for that, not just because it's wonderful, but I had a great experience with it because that's the one of these I got to see 2 weeks early,
Mhm.
and that was one of the best screenings I've ever had of anything, and I got to see my wife, and like it was really special because the movie was also great.
Yeah, no, and I saw that 4 times in the theater. It was the first Marvel film I'd ever done that with. Like, I
Oh wow.
was really big into it at the time.
I don't remember how many times I went, but it was definitely more than two. Pros and cons guy, $5 super chat. Thank you. A guy I saw Civil War with thought Ant-Man was Deadpool.
That's awesome. Deadpool just gets really big. I
That's so
some of
funny.
the jokes they do with Ant-Man in that movie, like, I can see Deadpool's delivery of it, like, something just flew in me, things like that. The orange slices line sounds like something he would say.
That's true, yeah. And I just like the idea that the guy completely missed Ant-Man was a thing. Like didn't even see it, and then it's really funny.
Maybe he thought it was Deadpool 1, and then Deadpool was the second one.
Do you think that there is an alter? We should move on. Do you think there's an alternate version of Marvel history, of MCU history, where Ant-Man could have been introduced in that movie instead of in his own movie, and maybe in lieu of Spider-Man?
Yeah,
That
probably.
could have
I know they
worked.
wanted to introduce Wasp in that movie, and it was they weren't able to.
That would have also made it feel a lot more Avengers-y, where it's like we're finally getting to some of the original Avengers team from the comics.
Except we have their replacements.
Well, that's true. I guess characters people think of as original because they just go back real far. But yeah,
Yeah.
because in my brain, it's still weird to not start Avengers with Ant-Man and Wasp. Because when I was a kid, those were characters you thought of when you thought of Avengers.
Yeah, exactly.
They get replaced pretty early.
hmm No, I saw something recently. It was maybe that Rivals game where they put out, like a post where it was like, "Oh, the Avengers," and it's the movie lineup. And I saw comments that were like, "Hey, the MCU's like pretty crap right now. Can we just go back to just doing the comic thing, where it's Ant-Man and Wasp instead of those two?" I was like, "Yeah, I kind of feel that."
Okay, so we're at 33
33.
now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you put Civil War at 33, and I put the first Avengers movie at 33,
Oh, there you go. It's the ultimate argument.
which kind of
Avengers or
means
Captain America?
all of these are probably higher on my list than they are yours.
Yeah, I think so, because Avengers was what? 71 on my list.
And you wouldn't have even included Ultron, and I had it pretty low, but I had it.
Yeah, exactly.
I had all of them. I don't know if you've said, because I've already said Endgame. I don't know if you've said that yet.
Yeah, that was lower on my list.
So I've got
That
them
was
all
89.
higher than you probably. I mean, we haven't gotten to all of them on my end yet, but.
hmm
And have you said an Infinity War yet? Probably not.
Yes, that
Oh no, you did.
was
Because because Civil
52.
War's higher than that. Okay, so you've said all of them now that you're going to say.
Yeah, exactly. I'm Avengers out at this point.
Avengers is this high for me partly because of once again, kind of like I just said with Civil War, the experience that I had in the theater, and of course I do continue to really enjoy that movie. I've not, it hasn't totally lost its luster over the years, and I think I've probably lost more interest from my initial jubilation in things like Endgame than I have the first Avengers. The things that I didn't love or that kind of irritated me from the beginning are still the things that irritate me now. It hasn't grown new issues really, but I guess I will say some of the Whedonism stuff, just with his body of work in general, is a little bit more heightened for me now, and does not hold up so great. But beyond that, that is still just a really enjoyable watch, and it was such a big deal, of course, to finally get all of these characters and their own disparate things get to come together in a movie like that. The way that that made history, and I still say that Civil War kind of made me feel that way again, and Infinity War managed to kind of make me feel that way again, but in different ways than Avengers was the first. I also was really leery of that director choice, as much of a Whedon fan as I was at the time. So I think I was, even more happy just because I didn't expect it to be quite as good as it was. And I agree with you with your kind of TV issues with him, but I also think that because I was so, familiar with his stuff, and I liked Serenity a lot, the ways in which it's kind of TV didn't bother me as much. But I mean, you ain't wrong about it. And what like serious character and story stuff is in that movie, because it is a big event thing, and it is as much about just getting the character dynamics finally together on screen as it is anything. Really kind of resonated with me and spoke to me. I've always appreciated the way that kind of gets the ball rolling on the security versus free will stuff that will then really get rolling on when we get to Winter Soldier, and the way that Iron Man and Captain America are at loggerheads, I think is really well handled. Thor gets lost in the shuffle. I don't love the way he's written in that movie,
and it sucks because the main villain is his brother and main villain.
Yeah, and Loki's really well handled in it, and it's cool that they went back to the, classic comic story for that. Mm-hmm. But, and I like the way Ruffalo's Hulk is handled pretty well in that movie, and almost never again.
Yeah, that's what I have. I still like Norton more than him in that movie, but I do like him.
I do too, but I thought he was, and it was a different take, but it seemed... it didn't seem incorrect. It was kind of odd recasting, because it wasn't like the Rhodey thing where suddenly Rhodey still felt like more or less the same character to me, and just a different guy playing him. And I didn't have that with Ruffalo. It felt like a reinvention, whereas this is Whedon's Hulk, and it was also really easy for people to just kind of write off Incredible Hulk because it didn't do well.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of it, is that you get to Avengers and their Hulk is so much different too, where it's like, does that movie even count at this point?
Yeah.
And the only reference to it in that movie is to a deleted scene.
Yeah. And then subsequently we have gone back to it a lot now.
Yeah, it's really strange.
Yeah, it's
in
really
weird
strange.
ways.
But I've got those little gripes here and there that with pieces of dialogue and stuff. I don't care what anybody says. I still don't like how is that a party. I don't. There's some lines here and there. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, no, that one it never jumped out to me until I heard you complain about that, and I was like, oh, weird.
It's always bothered me.
It's just in one ear out the other to me. I've never even really thought of it.
And I wish there was something cool about the Chitauri. They're kind of just
very bland
placeholder aliens. We got to have something. And considering that we finally did get to Skrulls later, and I didn't love what we did with them either.
Yeah.
Because wasn't the idea that it was, or am I thinking of a different race? Wasn't the idea that it should have been Skrulls originally, and then they didn't have the rights to that, or was it some other race?
Maybe you might just be thinking about the Chitauri are the Skrulls in the Ultimate Universe.
Right, but I thought that's the reason they used them, was for some reason right then they couldn't use the Skrulls. And at the time the talk was that it was because it was part of the Fantastic Four package, I thought.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
But don't we use them?
Whedon also just really likes the Ultimates.
Yeah, but I really thought there was talk back then about how they were kind of stuck having to use some other thing because they couldn't use the scrolls. I don't know if I'm right about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But then, um, but then when we do use them in Captain Marvel, I don't think the Fox buyout is done yet.
No, it wouldn't have been done in time for them to make that movie because I think that buyout goes in like a few months before it. Maybe that it's at least announced, and maybe like around when that movie comes out is when they finalize it.
Before we move on, can I just really briefly, because I think I finally have kind of landed on this. I'll tell you why I don't like that stupid Black Widow joke.
Okay.
It's because it sounds like it belongs to a different character. That's like what an
Yeah.
alien would say.
I mean, I just have that with Whedon. Where,
Like
they all
Thor
kinda
should
talk
have
the
said
same.
that. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. There's quite a few lines like with a lot of the characters that have always rung really weird to me.
yeah,
There's something about the way Downey delivers. It's when he's talking to Bruce and he's like, "You got hit by gamma radiation that should have killed you." The way he says it is always has always been really weird to me. Where I'm like, that is like his one really bad delivery in like all these movies, and I don't understand why it's so weird. I also think the part where Thor is like, "You people are so petty and tiny," is also really weird.
yeah, it's really weird.
There's just a couple moments like that where I'm like, this doesn't really feel like these characters.
Yeah, and where you could see maybe certain versions of those characters in comics doing that, where it almost feels like Whedon comes in and he's doing more generic versions of them, where he like didn't understand or didn't watch the movies they were in before. Like, there's a little bit of that. I don't have that with his Iron Man, but that's also
that shoulda killed
probably
you bit isn't a bad line. It's just delivered weird.
sure. But I just mean overall, like Thor seems like a different character in that movie to me than he was in his first movie, and I don't have that with Iron Man. Probably partly because Downey always comes in and does a lot of his own dialogue. Like I think part of the reason that his arc tracks so well through those movies is because Downey is so personally involved in crafting it.
You know what it is with Thor? Is Thor comes in and he loses like 100 IQ points.
Yeah.
Where it's like he comes in and the take on him in that movie is like hot-heady and like kind of like barbarian-y, where it's like he comes in and he's like a little slow on the uptake, and like he's almost a less exaggerated Drax in a way, where like he comes in and he's just kind of the dumb one.
Well, I tell you what it is. It's Whedon doing an ensemble sci-fi thing. He's got to have his Jane. Like, that's what it is.
Oh, sure. Yeah, now that you say it like that is what he's doing. Yeah. I don't know. It is strange. And I mean,
You could probably come up with analogs for all of that cast, but I'm not going to do it right now. But like in certain ways, he's kind of treating Black Widow like his River. Like, you could do this.
yeah, and Whedon and Marcus McFeely's takes on Captain America are different, but not in a way that's like really obvious. Like, you kind of have to think about it a little bit more to realize, like, oh, he's not really the same character, where Whedon's Captain America is someone that's always looking for the next fight because he doesn't belong, while their Captain America is more, ready to go back to that dance. Well, I don't think Whedon's would be, but like, I don't think Whedon Captain America has the ending that he does in Endgame.
Oh, maybe not. I never really had that thought. Well, anyway, we should start moving it more of a clip. We're at like half an hour, and we've done one because we hit Avengers movies again. We're hitting
and a movie we've talked about
big,
too.
heavy hitting
we're
things.
just bad at this.
We're terrible. It's fine.
But I don't think we talked about any of this last time, so it's okay.
No, that's true. We're covering new ground.
We're breaking new ground on this.
But I'll just mention once again that all of this is very subjective. Like, I've got issues with that movie. I still, just for my own personal taste and interest, I could not help but put it that high.
I mean, it's a movie I put on, and just have a good time watching. Like, I've got issues when we're talking about it where I'm like, oh, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. When I'm watching it, it's like, oh, this is just a fun ride.
I think part of it too is I really appreciate the way Whedon modernizes the superhero team idea and not making it so modern that it's not still fun superhero fare and schlock to some degree. But like I really like the choice of making the entire conflict Shield's fault in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I've always
Yeah,
really
no, I
liked
like that
that.
too.
And that being Captain America's shattering disillusionment.
Leave it to Shield to always make everyone's lives worse.
Okay, let's get rolling here. What is your 32 now?
So my 32 is one that I haven't seen in a long time, so it could easily be swayed. But
Another grain of salt choice.
yeah, exactly. It's another grain of salt choice. But it's one that I liked a lot growing up, so I was like, I'll throw this in here. It's V for Vendetta, which I remember being a lesser version of the book, but still enjoyable. And Hugo Weaving is like one of the best comic book casting choices in that movie.
And I have to admit, I just forgot about it.
No, that's fair.
That's one that was not on my radar for counting as superhero, even though I've always intended on doing it on Rewind. I've just never gotten to it. So it should be on my list.
This made my list at like the last second. I think this was the last movie I added, where I was like, oh yeah, I can add this.
I've only seen it once, and I watched it a couple of years ago in initial preparation for an Unscripted Rewind, and then for whatever reason, I didn't get to it. And so if I was placing it, like, having only seen it the one time and not really getting a great chance to digest it and live with it, it's probably like either 60 or even more at the halfway point. Like, it's...
Oh, okay, I was gonna say like it wouldn't even make your list just because it's not like something that you're super well.
Yeah, no, but it's undeniably great. Like if I spent more time with it, it might even show up more in like the 40s. But on one viewing, I'd probably throw it in like, I don't know, 60, like somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And like I said, it could easily change by me looking at that material again because it's been so long. But I remember thinking it's the best more adaptation, even though it also waters down the book, but like better than some of the rest.
Well, one of the things that was most shocking for me, and you know how much I love Hugo Weaving, but...
Oh yeah, and he's great in that movie.
One of the big things that shocked me with that movie, and I'm probably not alone, is just how good Natalie Portman is.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't tend to like her and stuff. And I've liked her in a couple other things, but like she's really good in that, and I should be irritated that she's not even attempting a British accent, and I'm not. It's fine. I have no problem with it, and it should drive me insane, but it doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, and she shaved her head. She was committed.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Was there even an excuse in story for why she doesn't have a British accent? I can't remember anymore.
I think it's just because Natalie Portman is playing her, maybe can't do it.
That is such a stylish movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't think they directed it, but that's the Wachowski's producing, I think.
Yes.
And I think they I think that's one of those movies where people have talked about, they were maybe shadow directed, but I can't remember. It's been too long.
Which is hilarious because there have been there's been a lot of speculation and rumor that part of the Matrix is shadow directed around the Wachowskis. So.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well,
yeah.
I was going to say, and if that is true, it would be like the only good thing they've made outside of the first Matrix. But
yeah, there have been rumors swirling forever that the studio like took it away from them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Somebody else finished it, and that's why it's coherent. But I'll never know if there's actually very much truth in that, probably.
Yeah, who knows? But anyways, V for Vendetta is a shockingly good time.
Yeah. I look forward to eventually actually talking about it with you.
Yeah, I'm excited because
I've never discussed it.
Yeah, and I'm excited because we were talking about doing it like we did Dark Knight Returns. I'd love to read the book again. I've only read it once.
No, that's probably one of the great, kind of revolution movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. One of the few times we've done action in 1984 and it works.
Yeah. Well, and I love being put in that position where I'm rooting for a vigilante that with actions that I can't condone, but sort of feel like I'm condoning. I love being put in that morally ambiguous place as a viewer.
Hmm. Yeah, that's one thing I remember being pretty different is I think V is much more like morally questionable in the book, while we maybe tone that down a little bit in the movie.
Slipmaker, but would it have been better with Keira Knightley and Natalie Portman doing pirates? Would her accent be better at shouting fire?
Uh, that is possible.
I'm really glad you brought that one up, and I kind of feel, remiss in not listing it.
Hmm. Oh yeah, and Robert Wilde brings up the third act. I think the third act fight with V is genuinely one of the coolest shot action sequences in a superhero movie.
Yeah, I gotta look at it again. Well, and I always talk about movies like Blade and stuff in being so. And actually, the next thing I'm about to mention is on my list for this category too. The most comic book looking movies of all time. V should probably go in there.
Hmm. Well, it's always been funny to me because I remember reading the book and it's like V goes down. I think it's in the sewers, and he fights like the one detective guy, and he shoots him, and then V stabs him, and then he walks off, and he also dies. And then you get to the movie, and he's got like a whole hit squad, and they all open fire on him, and he looks up and he doesn't drop because he's wearing body armor, and then he just like murders all of them with knives. Like it's so much like pumped up for a movie, and it's really cool.
My 32 had to be this high because when I first did any material on it, when I did rewind on it, I just couldn't find anything wrong with it, and it became a 4 immediately. And it wasn't one of my favorite movies or anything, but it has kind of become that. It's sort of like RoboCop, where like ever since I lived with it, I couldn't stop thinking about it, and it wasn't even really my sort of thing in the first place, which is why it's not even higher than this. But it's The Crow. The Crow's got to go this high.
The Crow did not make my list.
It didn't make your list at all.
No, I was very disappointed when I watched The Crow.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm interested to do the rewind commentary with you on that movie too. Then I'm really surprised to hear you say that.
Yeah,
did you just feel like it was like all style and no substance, or?
Not exactly. Like I felt like it didn't feel like a full movie, but
wow. See, I see The Crow as an almost perfect melodrama.
Mm-hmm. No, fair enough. I mean, a lot of people do. I'm also just, I don't know, like the 90s edgy thing doesn't do anything for me either. So, like, a lot of the style of it.
Yeah. How much of it is you had to be there, too?
Yeah, exactly.
And again, I don't mean to pull the I'm older than you card, but, like, there's a nostalgic piece to this, too.
Yeah.
And it's not even like I'm nostalgic for that movie growing up with it. I'm nostalgic for that period. And, like, I like that kind of music better than you probably do, and...
No, I kind of felt like I was watching 90s RoboCop, and I was like...
That's what I like about it. I agree.
I don't really like the 90s.
And I think that's what,
like,
yeah.
It's just a worse RoboCop. But fair enough. And like I said,
I'm such an
unabashed
movie. 90s obsessive, and I'm not going to apologize for it. It's just...
You don't have to. Like I said, I'm also not saying it's a bad movie. Like, it's just, it didn't hit me. I was kind of underwhelmed, but...
Yeah, that's totally understandable. You ever have this with a thing where, because I had seen The Crow before and had sort of dismissed it, and then when I did that rewind, something gelled with me and never ungelled. Have you ever had that with anything where like it finally clicks in and you're like, those Tetris blocks are never going to come apart now?
Absolutely. I had that with like over the last few years, the new Nick Cage film, Color Out of Space. The first time I watched it, I was like, that's just okay. And then like I've really grown to love it as I've seen it more. But that absolutely happens. I'm sure I have more examples. It was the first thing that came to mind.
I think The Crow also made me appreciate revenge thrillers in a way I hadn't before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Where like I never sympathized as much with a revenge killer as I did Eric Draven, and I think part of that is that guy really gets a pass because the universe brings him back to life to do that. And
Mhm.
I always kind of liked that idea where, like, I was talking about this um with our previous movie, just the idea of characters that you can't with V, like characters that you don't condone what they do, but you understand it, and you sympathize with their plight. But with Eric Draven, it's like he's a wraith, and he's dead, and like the universe, the powers that be, or God or whoever, like brought him back and said, "Go kill all those idiots that killed you." And so, like, I don't know, in that particular situation, he's given such a green light. It's hard to even have a problem with it.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
that's fun.
Mhm.
But yeah, just ridiculous amount of atmosphere dripping with that movie. There's a part of me that always kind of wanted, like sort of the only issue I ever had with it was I'd kind of like Eric Draven and his girlfriend to get a little bit of screen time together. And I don't love the flashback thing, but I also don't know if I would want to open with them being still alive for very long at the beginning of that movie. And then the remake did that, and it was terrible. But that's not the reason it was bad. It was just, horribly written.
Yeah, because I feel differently from a lot of people where I feel like you probably could make a good remake of The Crow. It's just they clearly didn't.
Yeah, I think you could, but but that's not what I want, because I think there's lots of different stories you can tell with that concept. I have exactly the same
Yeah.
thing with The Crow that I do with The Mask.
hmm Well, my main thing is I'm like, why don't you start with the stuff they couldn't put in the first movie? Because of the accident. Like, why isn't that your starting place?
That's a great point. Robert says also Ernie Hudson is great in that movie. He is,
Mhm.
indeed, and that should have been the start of a big career for him in supporting roles, and it didn't happen. But
Yeah, for sure. At least he gets to keep coming back for Ghostbusters stuff. He loves doing that.
yeah, now finally, man's in his 70s. Finally, he's on screen again. Austin, what is your 31?
My 31 I feel weird about because one of the main reasons I liked it was that I thought it was super quotable, and I also don't remember any of the like funny lines that I
So it was
liked.
so quotable. I can't give you one though.
But I've only seen it once, to be fair, and it was yeah. But my 31 is the only one on my list that I can't even make an argument for. I don't understand why it counts, which is Donnie Darko. I don't know why it
I
counts,
don't know
but it's
why it counts
eligible.
either. I also like that movie, but am frustrated with it.
Mhm.
And you and I have talked about this a little bit off camera. Having seen the director's cut, I think the theatrical cut is unwatchable
Yeah, I don't know which one I
because
saw.
I have no idea what the hell is happening. I still don't totally know what's happening when you get the director's cut. But like all of the mythology is in the director's cut,
Mhm.
and the ideas are in the director's cut. I don't know why it's a superhero movie, and I'm
Mhm.
really sick of pretentious people claiming that it is just because they heard someone say that. Like the history of the fandom of Donnie Darko is a game of telephone. Like that's all it is. It's just somebody heard somebody say it's a superhero movie, and then the director or writer, whoever, or was it written directed? I can't remember anymore. I think it was. Is like has said that himself and confirmed it. And so they'll see it's a superhero movie. I'm like, I still don't see it, but
Yeah, I have no idea why. I think I watched it and like immediately messaged you to be like, "Why does this count?"
this is one of my favorite things that's happened in the live comments in a while. John says Donnie Darko rocks. Matthew Bass immediately says Donnie Darko sucks.
Really, just the duality of man. Yeah.
We have the massive comedy and tragedy right there.
uh, no, there's just so much weird dialogue in that movie, and that was like one of the big things that really stuck with me. Even though apparently it didn't, because I can't recall any of them. But uh, when I watched it, I was like, because I remember as a kid watching the Butterfly Effect, and when I watched Johnny Darko, it was like, oh, this is what they were trying to do with that movie. Like,
That's the reason I've never watched The Butterfly Effect. I've always been curious about it because I love that idea. And you know me, I'm constantly talking about that concept.
Yeah, one, it's just like it's Donnie Darko, but starring Ashton Kutcher.
Oh.
Like, who wants that? Ugh.
I feel like we need a commercial we can play when you have to get up and walk around your house.
I know, right? Like, let's go to the lobby.
Tyler says they only released the director's cut over here, wherever he is.
In Australia, okay.
Oh, he's in Australia.
Damn Aussies. What is your 31?
Real quick, Dan Schneider put in a $5 super chat. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Ernie Hudson is a major character in HBO Oz. Oh, I had heard that. He's great in it.
Okay.
Also, the Donnie Darko wrote an R-rated whole script. Yeah, the Shia Disney film.
So, in translation...
Yeah, I don't know what any of that means.
The writer of Donnie Darko did write an R-rated version of the movie Holes, which is a Shia LaBeouf Disney film.
Oh, Shia LaBeouf. There you go. Okay. Sorry, I said that weird because I didn't know he was that's what he was talking about.
Yeah. I only know that because I think one of my brothers really liked that movie. I think it's based on a book.
Yeah, I know what holes is.
Yeah.
I know what holes are.
They're things in the ground and you fall in them.
Well, they're in fact the absence of things. That's why donut hole is stupid.
Oh, that is true. What is your 31?
You know, Donnie Darko, that did not make my list.
Yeah.
Because even though I like things about that movie, even if I got why it's superhero, I don't know if it quite would have made my list.
Mm-hmm.
But because I still go back and forth where I can't decide if it's just kind of pretentious nonsense or if there's really something to it. I overthought it really hard when I did the unscripted rewind on that, and that feels like a test I crammed for and promptly forgot everything. And that experience by itself should have been enough of a reason to not go forward with the superhero rewind commentary project, because someday I'm gonna have to do it again, but I'm not gonna take copious notes this time.
I mean, I feel like because I can't remember the dialogue that made me put it this high, I feel like I should drop it down like quite a bit, but I did really like it when I watched it.
It seems kind of incorrect that you just didn't include the crow at all. But you put in that and you don't even remember why.
I remember why, I just don't remember specifics. It's been a while, okay? We've been doing this list for 84 years, Cap.
That's true. We got 6 more to go until we're 90.
What is your 31?
Although, by that logic, that would make us 84, and we've done it since birth. I'll just move on now. My 31 is The Mask of Zorro.
Oh, okay. Nice.
This is where we get into, again, really subjective placement, where you get a movie that is nigh perfect, and because it is Zorro, it is only 31 on my list.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I love it while I'm watching it, and it's not a movie that I think, like, yeah, let's sit down and watch Mask of Zorro. But, like, if I gotta watch it, it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. No, very true.
So that just gets into kind of taste stuff. But Austin and I have done the rewind commentary on that movie.
That's a really long movie too, so that's a long commentary. We had a lot of this stuff to talk about.
But it doesn't feel too long. Like,
no, it doesn't.
It really earns its runtime. And that cast is amazing and really great balance, again, of drama and comedy and of just, fun swashbuckling adventure. Like, that felt like an instant classic when it came out. It was, these are the kind of movies we don't make anymore, but also modernized in exactly the right way, if that makes any sense at all, where, like, it goes back to old Hollywood, but it's allowed to have some I think some character dimension that you maybe wouldn't have even had if you know, if you go back to you know, like the 40s 50s with some of the stuff that it's calling back to.
Yeah, and it's the best of those proto superhero movies, and that were coming out around that time. And it's
Of
like,
which we've done
no question.
all of now. Like, for some reason,
We're only missing Dick Tracy.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, the early shows for the Rewind Commentary Project, we have, for whatever reason, accidentally and intentionally in various cases, we've wound up putting a lot of those, what we like to call proto-superhero and pulp hero movies in.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because Austin always talks about how he's not a 90s guy, but that's all 90s stuff. A lot of it's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I like two of them.
That's not true. Maybe that is true. You like The Shadow. You put The Shadow way higher than I thought you would.
That is true. I really liked The Shadow. I guess I like The Rocketeer.
And they're like, okay, that's 3.
That's 3. There you go.
That's
but
3.
I did not.
You didn't
like
care for the Phantom. You didn't care for the Phantom.
I think that's all we've done.
And I am still, to some degree, defending the Phantom, but I had the worst watch of that last time.
I was so excited to watch it because you were like, "Oh man, the Phantom." And I watched it and I was like, "This sucks."
I got too wrapped up in it.
That's okay. It happens to the best of us.
Yeah, it also happens to me. Pros and cons guy, $2 super chat. Have you guys seen Japanese superhero movies? I mean, I've seen stuff that
Like
technically counts, like tokusatsu things.
One light was strobing. Sorry, I had to fix that. Yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
It just makes it more moody.
Yeah, that is true. You probably can't see the flashing effect.
Robert,
I was about to have a seizure on camera.
Robert says the general consensus seems to be the Mask of Zorro accomplished what the Phantom was trying to do. I don't even totally agree with that because I still stand by the argument that the Phantom wanted to be purely a movie serial condensed down into an hour and a half. And Mask of Zorro, something like Mask of Zorro, something like Rocketeer are, well, even Rocketeer's maybe somewhere in the middle, actually, because I was going to say those are movies that, like, elevate it.
Yeah, I would say the Rocketeer...
Maybe the Rocketeer is a better example of a movie that did what the Phantom was trying to accomplish, even though it comes out, like, a few years before that.
Yeah, exactly. The Mask of Zorro is definitely taking that and elevating it.
That's what it's throwing back to. Much more in like a Spielbergian vein, but even more character-driven than those tend to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
There's more pure dramatic narrative in that than you get even in like an Indiana Jones or something. Not to knock Indiana Jones, I'm just saying that's what these are. That's what these things are. Because that's more pure melodrama. I would not call Mask of Zorro a melodrama.
Mm-hmm. No, I wouldn't either.
Okay, we are at number 30, slowly but surely. What do you say, sir?
My number 30 is one that at one time was higher, but then when I rewatched them, I was like, okay, no, I don't agree with putting this over the original. My number 30 is Superman 2.
That's because we made this 86 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. My number 30 is Superman 2, which is still a movie I like quite a lot, but I don't like it quite as much as the original film like I used to when I first watched them. But I mean, Zod is awesome. You have my favorite moment in any superhero film where Superman throws his S at Non.
Yeah, so you're not even saying Donner Cut. You're saying Superman 2.
I've never seen the Donner Cut, so it's just Superman 2.
See, I kind of want to just put them together. I have a tougher time separating them just in, again, personal interest and taste than other people do. There are people that just dismiss the Lester version entirely now because we have the Donner Cut. And I can't do that because...
It's not a finished cut.
And I need a Superman 1 that matches it. The problem is you can't watch them together, and that is simply indisputably true. You cannot watch those movies together. They both have the same ending. So you have to imagine Superman 1 as a different ending. I mean, it would have been nice if actually we'd somehow gotten a cut of 1 to match 2.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
Then I'll take that argument a little bit more. But I also don't like a Superman 2 that doesn't end with Superman putting the flag back on top of the White House. It's
such a
too
great
iconic.
moment.
You gotta have that.
And I don't like a Superman 2 that doesn't have him throwing the acid on. You have to have that.
I can have that if it's Donner's vision. Okay.
And in the Lester version, they go to Canada, so I can be happy with that.
And the Eiffel Tower for no good reason.
So that Superman can fight French people. Are you saying you don't want to see Superman knock around those snooty, cheese-eating fellas?
No, naturally I would never say that. But what I'm saying is you needed a really, and I guess you needed a dumb one, a really dumb contrivance just to get the Phantom Zone broken because you didn't set it up at the end of 1 like you were supposed to. That's the only reason that's there, where it's like, there's a bomb that Superman throws in space, and I guess the Phantom Zone glass was close enough to the atmosphere. Although, to be fair, that's also silly even if you had the original premise, because it's the bomb he throws at the end of the first movie also.
Yeah, it's one of the rockets.
It's one of the rockets, yeah.
No, I mean, it's silly all around.
So I might be showing my hand a little bit too much when I say this, but Superman 1, just forget the Donner cut, just looking at those movies the way they were released.
Yeah.
Superman 1 is, maybe it's not fair to say objective. I mean, like, you can, I obviously like what you like, but just on a pure, like, narrative level, Superman 1 is objectively better than 2. I still like 2 better.
Yeah.
I don't care. I still enjoy sitting down and watching 2 over 1 more.
That was what I had when I watched all the movies back to back. I was like, yes, 1 is a better movie, but I enjoyed 2 more. At this point, I would say I enjoy the first one a little bit more, but Superman 2 is undeniably amazing.
I have too much of a bias with Zod.
Zod's one of the best supervillains.
He's just he's a top 5 supervillains of all time. And he'll never be knocked off that list for me. It can't be done.
Yeah, and I mean the fight with them in Metropolis, I think, is genuinely thrilling. All that stuff's really cool,
and it's thrilling in both versions.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also really corny stuff in that fight, but I don't care. Like when all the gags. Do you remember this? All the gags with like the wind pushing everyone down the street.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of love it.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, because I had a thing where I was like, okay, I think the action in Man of Steel is very like headache inducing, and then I go into Superman 2 and I'm like, okay, like it is like a 70s movie. It's never going to be able to pull off some of that stuff, and then I don't know, like it kind of worked for me. I was like, the stuff is pretty thrilling.
What is with the woman in the Daily Planet that's really excited about Zod and his henchmen like looking like they're winning, like about to kill Superman? Like, what do you think is going to happen to you if Superman loses?
She's going to have a really good day at the newspaper because they got a good story to print.
She's like, yeah, while the windows are bursting all around you, and she's like, the big one is stronger than Superman, and I'm like, you're a complete idiot.
Mm-hmm. I also really like,
that might be the most sexist moment ever put in a superhero movie.
Maybe.
I never had that thought until just now, but it's like, that woman's excited because big strong guy.
I also maybe like Lex more in 2 because I like his.
Oh, I absolutely like him more in 2. Going wherever the wind is blowing. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, and some of his like line deliveries are so good, like the Superman. Thank God. I mean, go get him.
I mean, get him. And you gotta love the moment where he's got the stogie in his mouth and he goes, Australia.
Exactly. He is no Lex Luthor in Superman 4 with Ducky Luthor, but it is still great.
So good. Robert says I can see 2 having more of the rewatchability factor. I think some of it, for me, also is just, and again, this is really superficial, and this is just me being kind of a kid at heart. It's just more superhero-y.
Well, I think that's why I liked it more the first time. Is it's like, oh, I get to like live with Superman this time. Like I get
Yeah.
more of Christopher Reeve doing his thing. Not that the first movie's bad and having him come in later, but like sometimes you want to eat like a nice epic steak, and sometimes you just want to eat Superman's ass off his chest.
Well, that's oh my god, I can't believe you said that out loud. Now I'm just imagining
it sounded worse when it came out.
It did, and now I'm just imagining a fruit roll-up wrapped up in that cellophane.
Oh, that'd be amazing. The cellophane, Superman cellophane fruit roll-up.
Fruit roll-up.
Get on this, gun. This needs to be a tie-in for your movie.
But yeah, I mean, because of the way Donner got pushed out, they end up being 2 totally different kinds of movies in their way, right? Because I mean, I love that first movie for, like you said, the like the traditional epic nature of it, and it's one of the great superhero origins. Like it and Batman Begins are kind of the great superhero origins. I don't know if there's another one that even comes close to those 2.
Yeah, and I mean, Superman 2 is like Justice League if it weren't made by 2 hacks, where it's like you have like probably a good movie. It was then replaced with another director who made a pretty fine movie.
That's true. There's a parallel history there, except one of these guys, in this case, was more than competent, and the other guy makes very entertaining films.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with
exactly.
Justice League, it does kind of look like 2 hacks. I mean, I conceded that. I like Whedon better than you do, but not that day I didn't.
I mean, that's the worst Whedon, like objectively,
Yeah.
I think.
He was trolling us all with that.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on, shall we?
Yeah, what is your number 30?
Oh, my number 30 is Batman the movie from
Oh, okay.
1966.
And that didn't make my list, not because it's bad or anything, but just because I'm not as familiar with it. I'd need to rewatch it.
I think if you rewatched it, you probably would have thrown it somewhere.
Probably. I was thinking about it where I'm like, I like what I remember about it. I've only seen it once, and I think I only watched it with the Batmania, so I was like, I don't know if I can really justify
Sure.
putting it on the list. Like I'm not familiar enough with it.
It's very funny. It's very classic. It's not even my favorite thing out of 66. I talked a lot and that's probably the reason it doesn't go even higher on this list. Like that whole show, what I saw of it as a kid, and especially that movie, are near and dear to me and have a lot to do with why I'm in the things I'm into. And the movie when I was growing up was the only thing that was like actually available license to watch. You could catch reruns on the Family Channel and stuff like that, but you couldn't go out and buy any of it. And then eventually there weren't reruns anymore. So for a long time, because you had rights issues forever with Fox, we didn't think we would ever get the show out. So for the longest time, the movie was all you had. And I talked about this when I did the rewind, and I've talked about this in commentaries, but it's flawed in that the formula for the 2-part episodes doesn't translate great to a feature. So they did the best they could with it, and the smartest thing they did probably was padding out the villain count, where they're like, okay, we're gonna have an hour and a half of movie, and our formula is the serial thing again, because that show was a parody not just of Batman but of film serials, which is why you always had the Death Trap cliffhanger and why you always had the Bill Dozier voiceovers, announcer bits, which, by the way, there should have been. We should have done more of that in the movie, I think. But anyway, it's kind of hard to translate that to a feature where it's like Batman's going to follow clues, he's going to find the bad guy, he's going to get in a trap, he's going to almost die, and then we're going to come back and he'll have a round 2 and then he'll win this time. So how do you pad that out? Well, you have 4 villains that all you have a cabal, and then you have a few death traps, but none of them are as exciting and thrilling as in the show because, I mean, he's got to get out of it. It's a movie, so it's a little long in the tooth compared to episodes, I guess. But there's so many memorable lines. Kind of fun that Adam West got to be Bruce Wayne as much in that movie as he is. I love his chemistry with Lee Merriweather in that, who fills Julie Newmar's shoes extremely well. I prefer Newmar if I gotta pick between them, but if Merriweather had been there from the beginning, she would have been as iconic, I think, as Newmar was. Mm-hmm. And of course, I've always loved Gorshin, and Riddler gets not as much fun stuff to do as I think the other 3 maybe, but he's kind of more just there. He gets to, have riddles written in the sky. That's what he's there to do. And then obviously the whole some days you can't get rid of a bomb thing stuck with us, and we can't stop quoting it, and it's still very funny. And I think the bit on the pier is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in anything. Mm-hmm. And Adam West's performance is so good in that, where he's just running around with a bomb, and we get, like, more and more absurd things that he's running away from so he doesn't kill them, including a few little ducks in the water. And this Batman is so altruistic. He's not even... He's going to risk blowing himself up and everyone on a pier because there's a couple of ducks in the water. And the comedic timing of that is so good because you hit, like, the marching band and then the nuns. and then the ducks. And he turns back around and we do it all again. So good.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, because I didn't see that growing up. I remember my dad telling me about that bit and being like, oh, that is really funny. And then obviously, like with YouTube, I saw the shark thing, which is maybe one of the bits that I think has been kind of driven into the ground a little bit at this point. But it is funny in that movie.
Well, what I don't like about it is that we pretend like shark repellent is the most absurd thing that show ever did, and it's just not.
Mm-hmm. I guess just because it's in the movie, it was widely known by a lot of people.
Yeah.
Just because that show, didn't have a home release.
The shark repellent thing is so well known and popular that I wonder if there aren't people, especially younger than me, that mistakenly think that Jump the Shark comes from that and not Happy Days. I wonder about that.
Do kids know what Happy Days is?
No, I think at this point a lot of people don't even know at all where that comes from.
Kids maybe think that comes from Jaws.
Yeah, maybe so.
I don't know. Yeah, I wonder, do you think that movie is maybe part of the reason in a lot of different Batman material we like to group up the villains and just play with their dynamic for a while? Do you think that's maybe part of why that became so popular? Because you don't really see that as much with some of the other superheroes.
No, that's a good call. I mean, you get the Sinister Six and things like that, but
yeah, no, you get stuff like that. But I'm thinking more so like you'll have episodes of the animated series where you're basically just watching the villains bounce off each other. And
yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. Would we be as into let's get as much of the Rogues Gallery together if it weren't for that? I think that probably helped popularize it. I also think that the Rogues Gallery for Batman is so juicy that it's just inevitable that you do that.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fair. I just wondered. I have no answer with that.
I do think it's the reason that all 4 of them show up in The Batman.
Probably.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I still want to shake Reeves' hand for that choice. Nothing has ever made me happier watching a Batman project than he got all 4 of the villains from that movie. In that movie, it makes me very happy. Schweiger's Lover says the bomb scene was so effective that Rises ripped it off.
That is true.
That's kind of true.
What is that? Is it Stripperella? I think that Stan Lee cartoon. It like steals that scene too.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, I saw that like pop up in my Twitter feed the other day, and I was like, "Oh, weird!" Like they like literally just stole the joke.
Well, that's no fun. You have to do something with it if you're gonna do
exactly.
it.
But the sequel to that movie we almost got would have made my list at like number 1. The Adam West Batman versus Godzilla film. That would have been amazing.
Another thing that's amusing about the '60s Batman movie is they got all those helicopter shots, and then every time you see the helicopter in the TV show, it's shots they got for that movie. Yeah.
Of course, you gotta use the movie budget and get that stuff in so you can use it in the show.
Stuff's suddenly coming back to me. I say, confound it, the batteries are dead all the time. That's one of the big ones for me, because like wireless controllers and things. Just every time something goes out, confound it. And I also like how full of crap Batman is in that movie. Where he's like, I thought I noticed that foam rubber convention out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, no, you didn't. You got completely lucky that you're still alive.
No, he saw it out of the corner of his eye. Batman wouldn't lie.
Yeah, he tells little white lies to make himself look better.
No. Batman's like, remember, old chum, it's not okay to lie.
That also has the best the answer to a riddle of anything in that series. The Sparrow with the machine gun.
Oh, yeah, I can never remember if that was from the movie or from the show.
Sparrow with a machine gun. And that delivery is just amazing. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm just...
No, okay.
I'm just running off about this movie again. And thinking it should be higher, probably. All right, what is next for you, sir?
So my 29 is going to disappoint people really hard with how low it is.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I couldn't... Part of me is like, maybe I should bump it up, but I don't know.
I'm having that with some things while I'm looking at this. I want to rearrange several things I'm looking at right now, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm like, this sucks. Okay, my number 29 is, of course, Howard the Duck, which comes in like woefully low.
Wow!
I know.
I really thought that was going to be higher on your list.
I know. It's actually hurting my feelings a little bit. I wish it was a little bit higher, but Howard the Duck is a beautiful motion picture. Like literally every single thing about it is wonderful. It's got one of the best comic book villains, one of the steamiest comic book relationships on film, one of the best heroes. Just can't go wrong.
God, I don't know what you would have put there instead, but whatever it was, it would have been something else.
Exactly.
That's also a deeply quotable movie. That's a Duck Man comes up all the time with me.
Yeah, no, I quote that, I feel like, on a weekly basis at least. It's just so good. At some point, I need to go to my dad's house and just ask if I can borrow his copy of the Howard the Duck movie adaptation in comics, because he has all 4 issues for some reason.
You told me about that.
Yeah, and I want to see like how it compares.
We should review that.
That would be really funny.
I've done a lot of superhero movie adaptations, but I've never looked at that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I would love to know what that looks like. I assume Gerber worked on it because we did that a lot, but I have no idea.
Yeah, I wonder.
Mm-hmm. Like, I could see that being a thing. Maybe it's not, but I feel like we used to do that quite a bit.
With all of its flaws and ridiculousness and pacing issues and on and on and on, opening sequence with that is legitimately really clever.
Hmm. No, I think that movie is like genuinely entertaining from start to finish, and I feel like a lot of the hate it gets at this point is people who haven't seen it and just know it by reputation. Where I feel like that comes up a lot, where people just go, "Oh, well, it's Howard the Duck. It's one of the worst superhero films," and it's like, have you actually watched it though?
I do think that's a square so bad it's good sort of movie. Like a lot of things that people say that about, I don't agree with, and I think they overblow that. I think that's like the definitive
Yeah.
pick for that category because I I admire its weirdness, and there's a lot of things that I do legitimately enjoy in that movie. I don't think it works at all.
Hmm. No, it only works on being incredibly entertaining, and you get like there's like the weird guy that comes in and he can talk duck and he speaks like Donald Duck noises, or like his quack foo. It's so good.
You know what the two sides of this coin are?
What's that?
How the Duck did not make my list. You know what the two sides of this coin are? And I know I go to this all the time. It's fresh in my mind because we're gonna finally do it at the Rewind Project soon. But the two sides of the coin are Howard the Duck and Captain Invincible, because they're both very B movie esque,
Mhm.
and they're kitchen sink movies.
Mhm.
But one of them is, as all over the place as it is still like really cohesive and is telling a story by the end. And Howard the Duck is not that movie.
Mhm. No, exactly. And I think you could make like a genuinely really good Howard the Duck movie, and we won't now because of that movie's reputation. He will be forever delegated to just one-off joke. But
I disagree with that. I don't think he'll be relegated to just one-off joke, but I think if we ever do anything with him again, it will be a very easily dismissed, like Disney Plus animated miniseries or something.
mhm.
Like I could easily see that happening.
Yeah, and they would make like the worst thing imaginable with that.
Yeah, it's not what you'd want. Now I don't know that you'd ever get a feature again, but
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't even know if
they
we
made
would get a
Squirrel
Disney
Girl. They
Plus.
did that crappy MODOK show. Like, how are the ducks on the table? But
Yeah, I guess. Oh, so you're saying like more in the vein of like something like that, like or like Hit Monkey or whatever.
yes,
That okay.
yeah, I
I
think that's what
gotcha.
they'd make. Plus, GDX says he was going to get a Hulu show. See, yeah, and Hulu's where some of that stuff happened. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I was thinking just like a regular Disney Plus thing. Like it would be like
Well,
one of those shows.
to be fair to your point, they could have easily spun him off from What If because they did the stupid thing with. They either
Him
did a
and
stupid thing with him and Darcy, or they're going to. I can't remember because I haven't watched all of that, but I know
yeah.
there's supposed to be something with him.
Yeah, it's those two together. They hook up. If Marvel had any quality control, they would make a live action Howard the Duck TV show right now, like an expensive show, not like a regular Disney Plus show. And it would star Zoe Dutch, who is Leah Thompson's daughter, as basically that character, and it would just be the movie, but on TV, and it would be wonderful. But they won't do that.
Austin, would you read Dan Schneider's next super chat? Because with respect, I'm just really tired of reading Me Too jokes.
Oh, okay. He says, the dude that played the villain turned out to be something else in real life. He was perfect casting. He was really a dark overlord. It's actually far more uncomfortable than that, because the guy who plays Howard the Duck in that movie also in like the last year.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that
Oh,
is an unfortunate movie.
that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, and the same thing. But
Oh,
anyways, yeah.
okay.
Anyways, let's move on.
Dan Schneider, we appreciate the super chat, buddy. Goodness.
Yeah, I know. I remember when I found that out, I was like, "Oh man."
That's one of those guys that whenever he shows up and stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I have to. It just clouds everything. Like that's gotta. And I don't mean to be all selfish about it. Like all that matters is the enjoyment I'm having of the thing I'm watching. But I don't know. You can't look at anything the same. And
That's
it's
why you
happened
have
with
to
so
watch.
many people. I'm sorry.
That's why you have to watch Ferris Bueller, because he's like a creepy principal, and then he gets his ass kicked at the end. So it's like, oh, there we go.
You know,
It's cathartic.
all these great like I've had such a now we're stuck on this. I've had such a shattering disillusionment in my life, you know, just ruined my innocence. There's all these wonderful classic things I can't go back to anymore, like the Cosby Show, like Subway commercials. Like I can't watch anything anymore.
I draw the line at Howard the Duck, though. If we can't watch Howard the Duck because some of the people who made it were bad people, then I don't want to live in that timeline.
Can we get through that commentary without bringing this up? I don't think it'll be possible.
I don't know. I feel like we've done stuff like that and not brought it up, so
I don't think the super chats will let us.
Maybe. There's a thing we did not that long ago that I assumed that kind of thing would come up, and it didn't, so.
Oh, yeah, I forgot what that was, but I had that with something, too.
Yeah, well, I'm like, I don't know if I should say it, because then it's going to come up.
Then it's going to come up, yeah. Let's not do that.
Yeah, exactly. But what is your number 29?
Number 29. So if I had this to do over again, I would flip 29 and 30. I don't feel great about this, but these are both big loves of mine, just franchise-wise. So, you know, it's not horrible, but I'm just thinking about how classic the 60s Batman movie is. It probably should go above this. But my 29 is the Powerpuff Girls movie.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Which was a thing that we did a while back, and Austin didn't care for. But I have lost no love for that movie. No,
and I felt bad coming into it because I was like, oh, I don't want to like rain on Cap's parade. That's not fun.
I've had that with stuff with you too, where I'm like, I don't get why Austin's into this, but I don't want to make it no fun for him.
Yeah, for sure.
I just love the weird moodiness of that movie, with how, like, you know, fun and cute and spunky the Powerpuff Girls are, and then there's this like dark moody undertone, and I love all of the satire about negligent parenting. That's a theme that always cuts real close to home for me in a good way when it's handled well. And it ain't perfect or nothing. That is another thing, actually, kind of like the Adam West movie, where it struggles a little bit with how do you take, and in this it's harder because it's like, how do you take a like 10-minute cartoon premise and stretch that to an entire movie? And so its action scenes tend to be I said this a minute ago about something else. It kind of long in the tooth. And some of the comedy is supposed to come from how obnoxiously lengthy some of that is. Sometimes it works really well, and sometimes it doesn't as much. But I think the whole tag sequence is some of the best 2D animated storyboarding I've ever seen. It's really, really good. And I also love how elevated the animation is for that movie. McCracken and his team really killed themselves to make that screen-worthy, which I've always really appreciated. And it's also, for me, a good example, and I think it helps just that we're in a farcical comic vein. It's a good example of origin you never needed but works anyway. Like, I think part of the reason that I love that movie so much in the theater is you shouldn't make an origin for Powerpuff Girls, and I didn't want that to be what that movie was, and then I ended up liking it anyway, and so I probably liked it more than I would have, just because I was sort of against the premise, because I don't know if we talked about this when we did the commentary, Austin, but the origin for those characters is like succinctly given to you in 30 seconds in an intro. You don't need to stretch that to a movie. It's kind of a bad idea. And I think that was McCracken's whole idea, where he was like, this is stupid. Let's see if we can do it. And like, I kind of admire that. And so I actually like some of the like dumb little origins for things you never needed, like the windows in the girl's bedroom, where it's like the professor just lives in a house that has no windows at the top of it, so it's just this like square like building with nothing going on. And you're like, what was this architect? Like, obviously there should be windows there. And then the girls, because there are three of them, they each make one, and that's why there's three windows. You don't need an origin for the windows in the house, but it kind of comes off like a satire for dumb like micro origins. So I don't know. I think that's really funny.
Yeah, for sure.
Nicholas Poto, is it an origin movie, Cap? Well, yes, it is indeed.
Objectively so.
Yeah, that's what it is. And that's a movie I still go back to a lot. I probably watch that once a year, especially now that I've got kids, and especially now that I've got little girls.
Oh yeah,
I watch that a lot.
You gotta go back to it once a month.
Okay, we are now at 28.
Yes.
God, I'm feeling weirder and weirder about this list. As I'm looking at it, go ahead.
My number 28 is the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is just a really great, independent, fun comic book movie.
And it never gets old.
It really doesn't. That's basically like, I think I've talked about this before, but like my entire like Turtles fandom is that movie. But it's so good.
And that's fine. Like, you're not a big Turtles guy, but like everything that works about that concept is in that movie.
Exactly. It's so perfection. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is another one we do this on the Rewind commentary
project. Yeah, we've done this together.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, as a kid, I always liked 2 a little bit more, but for whatever reason, I still went back to 1 way more than I did the second one. That was a movie I watched a lot growing up, even though I didn't even really like Ninja Turtles. I was just like, this movie's amazing.
Well, it's one of those things where when you look into the source material, you find yourself liking it more, just because it's hard not to respect how much is directly translated from the early Mirage stuff. I mean, it to this day is one of the best examples of direct translation from source material.
No, it's like they took this comic and they just adapted it like you would like a novel or something.
Yeah, and truly adapted it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like, okay, let's take the premise and do our own thing with it. It's just, let's take this and make it work.
Yeah, and the best pieces and craft their own story. As I said, directly translate. They directly translate several things and graft it all together. But
exactly.
It's true, honest to God adaptation. And if you go read the early Eastman and Laird stuff, it's really impressive how much they get crammed into that movie without it feeling crammed in at all.
No, it's like the one thing they're missing from that early stuff is the Mousers. Like, outside of that, they like get in a lot of that.
Yeah, because I said everything that works about that premise is in that movie. I guess with the exception of we don't really do the big sci-fi stuff.
But I feel like if you were to do a sequel to that movie in the same vein of that first movie, that's probably what you do. Like, that isn't like a Mouser movie, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it very nearly was closer to that. Like, 2 was... We've probably talked about this before.
Yeah, I think we talked about it when we brought up 2.
But it's
heavily compromised.
But the professor in that movie was originally supposed to be Baxter Stockman, which is interesting because he's not a villainous presence at all.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I guess the issue with doing the Mousers back then is
how you make it look good.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be like Gremlins logic, I guess, like, where they're like obviously puppets, but you roll with it.
Yeah, like you kind of wonder how the Jim Henson Company would have handled that. Like what do they do with metal puppets or metal looking puppets?
Yeah, no kidding. Dan Schneider gives us $2. He says the '90 film gave us Brooklyn accent Raph.
Oh, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
And it really works.
Oh yeah, because it immediately makes you angrier. I mean, that's why the Thing is so angry. He's got a Brooklyn accent.
One of the images from that movie that stuck with me the most as a kid was the angry Raph face when the camera spins around him when Splinter gets kidnapped. Like, it's so good.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's so many just quotable lines or shots like that too. Just memorable shots.
But like just how serious that movie is allowed to get.
Mm-hmm.
In a moment like that, but how goofy it is otherwise.
Yeah, like
wonderful.
It's allowed to have that shot of Leonardo like passed out on the chair when he's waiting by Raphael in the bathtub. Like, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and that's all by itself just a really pretty piece of cinematography.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew it too, because then they make it one of the April drawings, and it's the one everybody remembers. I have a Ninja Turtles tattoo, and I very seriously considered getting that as a tattoo.
I remember that, yeah.
And I just didn't know how well it would translate as a tattoo.
Yeah.
So I didn't do it.
Robert Wild gives $2. He says,
Thanks,
do you want a Last Ronin TMNT 1990 Legacy sequel?
It doesn't matter what I want. They're doing that, kind of.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, there is going to be...
They're also making a game. They're like really going in all
and the game was announced first.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think they'd be tie-ins to each other. I think they're going to be completely independent projects. So yeah, it won't be a... As far as we know, it won't have anything to do with the 1990 movie. Might I appreciate that more or want that more as a direct connection to that movie? I kind of don't think so, Austin. Like it might work okay.
Mm-hmm. You could maybe do something interesting with that,
or maybe make it ambiguous the way TMNT did, where like you have some iconography from that movie that makes you wonder, like, is it supposed to count for that or not? Because what will be weird about Last Ronin is kind of the same thing that a lot of those direct-to-video DC movies have, where it's a premise that is built so much on the background and legacy of a thing, but it is its own thing. Mm-hmm. And it's like it's the first thing. So it is a little bit weird to go into something like Last Ronin and like you just imagine what all the background is. It's more or less just the classic stuff that you know for Ninja Turtles.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like a sequel premise, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got to be like a Dr. Sleep style sequel. Like, it is a sequel, but it's also just its own thing.
I kind of doubt they'll do that, but I'm with you. Maybe they ought to.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it could possibly be interesting. The main thing you would have to do with it, though, is the way you reveal that it's Michelangelo is with the a fellow chucker line. That's the way you do that.
The way you reveal what is...
that he is Michelangelo.
Oh, yeah.
You have like a really gruff, like, fellow chucker.
Yeah, what's weird about doing Last Ronin on the big screen is you can't surprise anybody now with that. Everybody that thinks to go to that movie is going to have that spoiled for them. Mm-hmm. You can't make a reveal out of that.
Unless they change it.
In fact, because of that, I would change it. I would make the audience think it's Michelangelo for a good 25% of that movie.
Because I'll also say, like, that is a good twist, but it's also so obvious that when they announced it, I was like, well, it's Michelangelo, right? Because that's the one that is the least likely to be that.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know.
Like, look how much he's changed. He's turned into a Frank Miller character.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's like, he's the party dude. He's the one you least expect to be that. You could maybe change that. Maybe make it Donatello or something.
Yeah.
They'll just make it Raphael because he's, like, the popular one.
Well, you know what I would do? I would have him covered from head to toe so you can't even see his face. And then when we finally reveal it, it's Metalhead.
No, you know what would be even better is if it's just like a turtle and you can't tell. He's got like a multicolored mask. He has all 4 colors.
Yeah.
And then he gets punched and his head flies off, and you're like, oh my god, like he just got decapitated. And then it cuts back, and it's Casey Jones, and he's wearing a turtle costume.
And he's 90 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
Dan Schneider, $5 super chat. With TMNT, one of the creators said it was canon to the 90s movies, and the other said it was not connected. They need to talk to each other. He's talking about Eastman and Laird. I had not heard that at all, that there was any potential connection to the 90 movie, but the more I'm thinking about it, the more I almost want it to be that Austin.
Oh, I think he means like with the TMNT movie. Like it's awkward because it's just TMNT, like that's the license. But I think he's just meaning that movie.
What do you mean? I mean, we're talking about Last Ronin.
No, I know, right? But I think he's specifically talking about the TMNT movie.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that is awkward, isn't it?
That's what I mean. Like, it's awkward because that's the title of that movie, but that's how we all shorthand it.
Yes, I'm sorry. He's right. I did know about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just always thought it was supposed to be canon.
It can't be. It's dumb if it is. It just doesn't work at all.
Mm-hmm. It's canon like Superman Returns is canon.
Yeah, and that doesn't work either. But like, you can't tell me that April O'Neil was ever a reporter, and why does she look like a teenager now? Like none of that.
They both have that.
She's a ninja now. Like, no. What, everybody that's supposed to be older looks younger now? Like, no.
Well, you know what the worst one is?
What's that?
Splinter has a lower half of his body. He didn't have that.
Well, we could really.
He did originally, but he lost it.
And then we could really split hairs with stuff like, he's got a totally different accent. He sounds like he's from an entirely different region of Japan. Like, no.
He doesn't say he made a funny. Just a different guy.
Yeah, and if he did, he wouldn't sound at all like the same character. Anyway, okay. What is
your 28?
Oh, it is my turn now.
It's yours, yeah, because mine was Ninja Turtles.
So, despite the fact that I am reevaluating this movie a little bit, I did not have the best watch with it the last time I saw it. It's still very near and dear to me, and I will always have that llove for it despite things.
Oh my god. Did Iron Man 2 get knocked down from your number one?
No, 28 is Watchmen.
Oh, okay.
So I do have a Zack Snyder movie in my top 30.
To be honest, I kind of thought you had already said Watchmen.
Oh, wow.
I'd forgotten
That's
that you
because we've been
said
talking about it so much lately, because we did that blind commentary on the new animated movie. That's probably why you thought that.
Probably, yeah. Well, and I know I mentioned that like it almost made my list, and then it like just missed it. So like maybe because of that too.
I still really respect that movie for how much of a direct translation it is, even if there is some creative license taken, certainly in the translation, in the interpretation, I should say. There are scenes that use the same dialogue that seem to mean different things in the movie than they do in that book. That is undeniable. I'm not going to argue about that. I do think that I had blinders on a little bit when I saw it in the theater, because I loved that book. I had just looked at the book again, and you'd think that would make me immediately notice like some of those differences and some of the just attitude changes, and it didn't. I think I brought a lot of the book to it. So like I will absolutely concede that I always had that, but it kind of makes this list and this high for me just on like atmosphere alone. Like, I just love the experience of watching that movie, and I still really appreciate a lot of the cast, not all of the cast.
Mhm.
I'm a broken record. I've never liked the Ozymandias choice. I think if you've not read the book and you just go to the movie, it's obvious from the first second he's on screen that he's the bad guy. And it's not just the actor's fault. The way he's shot, it's like, look, everybody, here's the bad guy, and I hate that.
Oh, Ozymandias is like the most unfortunate comic book character in terms of adaptation, because we ruin him every time we do him.
I like things that some other people don't, and I will just go through a quick litany of some of those things. Overall, I really like a lot of the song choices and the soundtrack for that movie. I really like Jackie Earle Haley, and I will like go to my grave defending his performance.
And I think most people do. Like, I do think he is a big highlight for a lot of people.
But you're not the only person I've talked to that complains about, like Jeff doesn't like his voice.
Oh, okay.
And he and I argued about that back when that movie came out. Jeff's weird though, because he always read Watchmen. He always read Rorschach in Watchmen with some kind of like weird, like European or like Eastern European voice, and I'm like he's from New York. I don't know why you think he has an accent, but all right.
He is possibly a homosexual. My accent like changed when I got to.
Well, that's kind of. I mean, his did too when he did the voice for me. I didn't really understand that. I'm throwing Jeff under the bus.
Partisan politicians will look up
I
and say save me, but I will look down and say no.
If I'd like this. Thank you, come again. But I like the ending change, and a lot of people don't. So there's a lot of things that I would.
I like part of the ending change. I don't like the Dr. Manhattan thing, but I do really like that it's not just New York. That's one of the things they change in the movie that I really like.
Yeah.
It kind of makes it worse that it's Dr. Manhattan, but I do like that choice that it's not just New York.
Eventually, we'll do the commentary. Oh, by the way, I noticed the other day, and you don't have Max in Canada, so this doesn't help you, but Max uploaded the Ultimate Cut.
Oh.
I never thought they'd do that.
That is weird. We don't typically do stuff like that with streaming, though.
No.
So, like, that's cool that they did that.
I had always intended, when we finally do a commentary on that movie, and we are, by the way, talking about making that one of our early ones for next year, so we will probably get to that soon. I had always intended to do the director's cut, partly because I didn't figure anybody owned the Ultimate. Like, you'd have to really be a big fan of that movie to go out and buy that. And it's 3.5 hours, and it's got all the Black Freighter stuff put back in it. But I'm tempted to do it that way now that it's streaming.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm on the fence about it.
No, because I own it, because I bought it on, it came out on 4K, and I saw it, and I was like, I don't know what 4K is, but I'll buy this. Only to find out that it was like a format I couldn't use, but now I can. So, but yeah, I was just like, I've never seen it physically. Like, I got to pick this up because it's the Ultimate Edition.
Chewbacca's Lover, $5 super chat. A lot of people blame the movie for Rorschach's popularity and admiration of him due to Jackie Earle Haley's performance. That wasn't a thing in the 80s. I'm going to disagree with you slightly, just to say, when I read it, that was my favorite character, and I certainly admired things about him.
Well, I also feel like there was a lot more nuance in the discussion around the characters in Watchmen, and I didn't hear as much vitriol until the Netflix, the HBO show came out, when it suddenly became he's either all good or he's the worst person ever.
And that was never that character.
And it was never that character. And like, I never heard that until that moment. It was like how I never heard anybody complain that Thanos is just a guy, pining after a woman, and isn't that lame, until the MCU changed it.
Well, and to be fair, both of those things also, to some degree, and if you let me say this too, if you come to your opinion, yourself, and you're actually a thinking person, okay,
yeah,
but those are also both games of telephone. Like I was talking about earlier, because I can't tell you the number of people I heard just parroting things that they had read on the internet with the Thanos thing. Where it's like, oh, he was just pining after. Did you even know about the death thing before 5 minutes ago? No, you didn't. You didn't know about that. You heard somebody on the internet say how stupid comic Thanos is and how one-dimensional he is, and because you had an experience in the theater with that character, because you were glad that you could sort of see where he was coming from, and he wasn't the like actual straight up evil character you thought he was. When somebody like halfway explained the comic character, you decided that was dumb. Read it.
Mm-hmm. But I feel like Watchmen had that where it was like there was people that went, I don't know if I buy that people would read Rorschach's journal and become Klansmen off of that. And then the immediate reaction to that was, no, shut up. He is just like a one-note right-wing parody, and that's all there is to the character. And it's like, but that's not what that is. Like, there's a lot more nuance in that book.
Well, and I also think that you're
and some of that's also Alan Moore, because Alan Moore now is also a very different person than he was back then. But I think a lot of people don't realize that either.
But I was going to say, I think you're underselling and ignoring, when you say that, kind of every other character in the book. Because Rorschach and really everybody else gets really interesting in comparing and contrasting them all to each other.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Where like there's a yin yang thing going on. You need a character like Rorschach when you're dealing with a character like Ozymandias, because they're both extremes. One of them, and they both have arguments, but they're both too extreme to be functional. That's the point. And so
no one in Watchmen is a good person. Like at the end of the day.
No, or a fully good. I mean, you can make an argument for Dryberg.
But even he's unwilling to actually fight for anything.
Yeah, that's true.
He's also like a washed-up loser.
Yeah, but I mean, he does kind of change though. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly.
He turns around and stops being that by the end. But the characters that refuse to change are the ones that have these like super extreme viewpoints that are unsustainable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So,
that's why the book's so good.
That's why the book's so good. Yeah, because it's looking at these really complex, deep, hard philosophical ideas from every possible angle. That's the reason I love that, is he doesn't really come down anywhere. You get to the end, and you kind of get to decide if yourself if what Ozymandias did was at all reasonable. And I mean, like, yeah, I don't think it was, but what if it worked? That's the thing, is what if it worked?
Yeah, well, I feel like that's actually where the admiration thing comes from, is that a lot of people don't agree with Ozymandias in the final part of that book. So then they go to Rorschach, who they see as being right ultimately. I just feel like that's more so where it comes from. Yeah, granted, the movie is also where a lot of people.
It's sort of like Civil War, where I'm gonna naturally lean more toward one side than the other, but that doesn't mean that the side that I'm a little bit more with, I'm agreeing with all of the methodology.
No, exactly.
But one is, or just how extreme it is. Where like these are both radical.
Mm-hmm.
So Ozymandias is the extreme of ends justifies the means, like complete and utter compromise. Whatever you have to do to get the job done. And Rorschach is the total opposite of that. It doesn't matter if we blow ourselves completely to smithereens and create beneath the Planet of the Apes. You do what you think is the right thing no matter what. And there is something endearing about that, and then you think about it for 5 seconds and it's horrifying. That's what's interesting about it.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, now we're just why the book is cool.
Yeah, but they're both totally unsustainable, because you get to the end of that, and we have a utopia that is probably going to be taken down in 5 seconds because of the journal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
It's the best ending of anything I've ever read, Austin. I mean, that's why I'm such a fan of Watchmen. I could boil the whole thing down to the guy pulls the journal out at the end.
Mhm.
That's why I love that ending.
Yeah, for sure. And why we shouldn't have done anything after it.
Robert, to me, the ending of Watchmen is about how flimsy Ozymandias' plan is and how quickly it fall apart. Yeah, exactly. Me too. And that doesn't make Rorschach right philosophically necessarily, but it does mean that it had no chance of ever being sustainable.
Yeah,
Anyway,
exactly.
I don't know how we got down that rabbit hole again.
I don't know. My dad's cousin is in the opening of Watchmen, so it's cool in my book.
I forgot you told me about that. I also love that opening.
It's a really good opening, yeah. That's like maybe the best part of that movie. Like it's really cool.
I never cared for Bob Dylan before that, and then I found more of an affinity for him after that.
I mean, I like Bob Dylan, but I like Bob Dylan in the way that I like. I don't know. He just has a goofy voice.
I like Bob Dylan the way I like, I don't know, a can of beans? Like, where are you going with this?
Yeah, exactly. The way I like an unfried can of beans.
Nicholas Bodo, the ambiguity of that ending is why I haven't read Doomsday Clock or seen the HBO show. Yeah, there should have never been anything else.
Yeah, and how they add on to the ending in the HBO show drives me insane. Their Ozymandias is so stupid. Oh my god, oh my goodness. But I don't want to just go off on that because I could talk about that for like an hour.
Okay, Austin, we got about 10 minutes before we hit 2 hours, and I'm going to have to go to bed here in a bit.
Okay, so do you want to wrap it up or do you want to do one more each?
Let's do one more each.
Okay, my number 27 is a film that 100% did not make your list. It's The Lone Ranger from 2013.
Okay, but it was almost 100.
Oh, really?
That's it.
Okay,
that's
that
in
makes
my
me happy.
that's in my extra 16. Yeah, and I say extra 16. That one was actually on and off the list like 5 times, and for that that incredible 10-minute. Oh man, hold on. My desk is falling apart before my eyes here.
Oh crap!
Holy crap! What is happening to my desk?
Sometimes you just can't repair a desk.
I'm gonna have to fix this when we're done. Oh man, I might need a new desk finally, folks. Ooh, what have I done? What have I done here?
Don't
Anyway,
come over to my creepy desk.
no, I was just gonna say, as like deeply flawed and massively uneven as that movie is, it
is like I can't deny that.
It has one of the greatest action scenes ever put in a superhero movie, with that right across the train, and it's Zimmer's best work in anything. Like, I still occasionally go listen to just that bit of that score.
The original theme. Sometimes I will blast that when I'm driving on the highway, and I feel like the coolest person on the planet, even though it's like the dorkiest thing to do, but it feels awesome.
It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
That is a perfect piece
and that's
of
a
score.
movie I avoided for the longest time because everybody hated it, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna watch that. Like, it's it's the Howard the Duck thing. I was like, that's this awful movie. I shouldn't watch that. And then I watched it. And I was like, no, this is genuinely wonderful.
So I know
and
you
I should
like.
have known because I just like Gore Verbinski.
I was gonna say I know how much you love Gore Verbinski, but how is it this high?
I really like that movie. Like, it's a movie that 100% has flaws, and I don't care while I'm watching it. It's just so enjoyable. I don't know. And it's just the type of thing where I'm like, okay, like writing wise, this is absolutely a mess. But I watch it and it puts me into a time where I'm like, oh yeah, remember when things weren't so, bland? Where it's like we used to make, movies and like they would have weird choices that are like questionable, but like as a pulse.
Yeah, that's true. There's also some just kind of being weird for the sake of being weird. And
Yeah, no, they're absolutely.
I wish it had more appreciation for the original and very simple and very difficult to mess up starting place for the Lone Ranger. Like, it just doesn't care about that character, and that's irritating to me from a starting place.
No, that's fair. Like, I don't know anything about the Lone Ranger, so it's like I've seen 2 episodes. I think I watched after I watched the movie.
Well, see, I made the mistake of looking into it,
Mm-hmm.
and it irritated me on behalf of fans of that character.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. But I feel like I have with that movie what fans of the Spirit have with that movie.
Oh,
Where
sure.
It's like, oh, that's not what I wanted as a fan. But I'm like, but I don't know. It's a movie I enjoy. Like, I
That
don't
also
have that.
almost made my list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I didn't get a chance to watch it, but
I think you would have put it on your list if you had watched it.
Mm-hmm. It's possible.
Probably.
I do quote that toilet line just because I've seen it from your like top 10 villain quotes video. I quote that line a lot.
Toilets are always funny.
Yeah, because there's always toilet stuff that like comes up like in shows or movies, or like you'll just be talking to someone and like a toilet will come up.
It's useful.
It always works.
It is useful.
Yeah, like Batman bashes Superman over the head with a toilet, and you're like, yeah, toilets are always funny.
And that movie has the weirdest Sam Jackson line in anything.
Mm-hmm.
He was dead. Dead is Star Trek.
I mean, you could definitely say that now. It's probably like ahead of its time.
That was so weird. And like, not a lot of timely pop culture references in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm sorry. Lone Ranger.
No, it's okay. I don't know. It's an enjoyable movie. Like I said, it's a complete mess. But then it also has one of the greatest third acts like in any superhero film. It's very much like it is Gore Verbinski's Pirates 4, but it's now a Western. Like it continues a lot of the issues with the sequels to that. And I've followed that trend. Like I'm already there with him. I'm like, okay, yeah, like I'm already accustomed to some of the bad habits.
Do you think that's a better movie if he makes it instead of Pirates in the first place? Like, do you think the problem is that he made 3 Pirates movies?
Maybe. Like if you went back?
Yeah.
Possibly, yeah. I probably still would have bombed. It would have
No, that's what I'm saying. He'd never work again, but it wouldn't have done what Pirates did because simply people were... I don't know, I guess we were living in the Watchmen universe. People were craving pirates.
Yeah.
But not so much proto-superhero on a horse. So we're back to proto-superheroes again.
Maybe if it's that close to Mask of Zorro, it works out, but I don't know.
Yeah, there's
because
still
it's a
great...
Western, and like there's a lot of people who are like really anti-Western.
That's true too. There's still a great, more traditional Lone Ranger movie to be made. I came to appreciate the story in that movie a lot more when I lived with it and did a unscripted rewind on it, because even though Tonto gets so much more screen time and it feels like his movie, and I don't like how deeply I had to look at it and think about it before I realized this. It should come out at you while you're watching it. It actually really is the Lone Ranger's movie.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised by that the more I thought about it, and that raised my respect level for it.
Yeah, for sure. No, because it gives it more to Johnny Depp because he's like weird and quirky, and like he gets his own story, but it is more the Lone Ranger's movie at the end of the day, even though...
Yeah, he gets the actual arc.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's so easy to miss that.
It's that pirate sequel thing, though. It's like we know that Jack Sparrow is like the one you're all here to see, except it's the first one. So like you're not already built in knowing that this guy's the protagonist, because they're already treating him as the fan favorite that we have to give more screen time to.
Yeah.
Which is weird to do on your first film. And people didn't like it because they didn't cast a Native American actor.
It's a little bit like... I'm thinking of other examples. It's a little bit like Green Hornet and Kato.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's, what, like 3 years before... Or no, 2 years before this.
Yes.
And there are properties that are connected, because the Lone Ranger is the ancestor of the Green Hornet.
And in a lesser way, it's a little bit like the way I we can argue about this. It's maybe a little bit like the way Batman gets buried in the Dark Knight, because it's kind of easy to get lost in the Joker of it all and think Batman's got no character arc in that movie. And whether you like or hate what is there, he does have an arc in that movie, but he feels a little lost in the jumble.
No, and that's a good point actually too, because I also feel like that is Gore Verbinski in a post Nolan Batman world, but he also doesn't move past what I like about Gore Verbinski. So he's like adopting some of those traits where like it's very Beginsy, and like you can tell the Dark Knight's happened.
And you got Zimmer there.
Well, and he did the Pirates sequels.
Right. But I'm just saying that also helps make it feel a little bit more Batman-esque, because it's Zimmer.
But he also doesn't, remove his weirdness that I like to do that, so it doesn't feel. I'm gonna use the word bland, but like I don't think those the Nolan Batman movies are especially bland. But you know what I mean? Like it's not like the Amazing Spider-Man where it's like let's just do that. Like it's like let's do that, but also have our own voice.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
You're the only person on the planet that would put that movie that high.
That's not true. Tarantino says it's one of the top 10 films of 2013, and the fact that I'm on his side about something when he has really strange opinions half the time is maybe unfortunate, but I stand by it. I love that movie.
Well, doesn't it make you wonder what Stephen King would think of that movie?
Oh my god, if Stephen King came out and was like, that is the greatest Western of all time, I would probably kill myself. Like that's like a step too far. I couldn't live in that reality.
All right, well, folks, we're gonna call it here.
We still have one more if you wanted to do that.
Is that true?
You were like, we have 10 minutes. We can each throw off.
No,
one,
you're
and then
right.
I talked too long about the.
I keep forgetting which of us is starting. Okay, I'll say my last one real briefly.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, you're okay. And I don't think you brought this one up yet because you like this movie even more than I do. But I'll let us have the majority of the conversation about it when we get there, if I'm right about this. My 27 is X-Men First Class.
Yes, that is still coming on my end.
I would think I would be earlier than you on that one.
That almost ended up higher on my list. We'll get there, but yeah.
Another movie I've talked a lot about, of course, my favorite characters in my favorite character in X-Men is Xavier, and the X-Men in the Xavier Magneto relationship is a classic friends turn enemies thing, which I never get tired of when it's done well, and that's one of the best of them on screen. I just melt like butter from a writing place, and just the acting is amazing when you get to that third act, and he says, "We are the same, no, my friend, we are not." I can't get enough of that. It's wonderful, and that is another one of those movies that I probably liked even a lot more in the theater than I would have otherwise, just because it had so much going against it. Really weird, kind of pseudo soft reboot thing that going in and even coming out of that movie was difficult to tell how it fit with the rest of those. And that was the place where I think a lot of people threw our hands in the air and went, okay, I no longer give any crap at all about the continuity of these movies. Like, if the movie is good, fine. And like that's X-Men First Class. A lot of us really wanted more of just a straight up reboot and go back to the actual original, quote unquote First Class of the X-Men, and then they have a very strange hodgepodge of a team to be the first X-Men team.
Hey, we got an Angel.
That
not
doesn't
the same one.
Yeah, you got multiple Angels, and then later you have a sequel to that movie with an Angel that is the same one from X3 that shouldn't be there. I don't understand any of that.
Angel is just like a really popular name. It's like John Smith in the X-Men universe. There's just a lot of Angels.
But what I was gonna say is, and then it's odd because they don't actually go to school, really. Before later on, a lot of them are going to die off, which is not X-Men First Class's fault, but like that whole thing is really weird.
They killed Banshee, my boy.
But like, it's amazing how good that movie is, despite all those super strange choices.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that it was made like, very little time. Like it was
that's true
like,
too.
Pretty rushed.
Well, that's just a testament to how good of a director Vaughn is.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly.
And it's got one of their best villains, in Shaw, who I'm endlessly fascinated by in comparing him to Stryker. Like that. One of the things that makes that movie great is just how interesting it is in comparison to what came before it, even though it is a prequel. And it's one of the better prequels, despite the fact that a lot of the things in it can't work with what you get. With what you got earlier that takes place later, and I guess I don't care. The 60s period stuff is really great. There's stuff I don't like. The Mystique Beast relationship I was always kind of iffy on.
Beast also looks terrible,
and he looks really bad in it.
Yep,
that is true. So it's not higher because nobody will be surprised there are X-Men movies I like more than it. But again, just subjective taste stuff more than story quality. Like, the case could be made that is the best script of the X-Men movies. Mm-hmm. Like, I know you would make that case. I don't full on not even buy that case. I just don't like it as well as a couple of the others.
Yeah, I mean that's 100% fair. That's also a movie, like, I don't remember hearing that we were getting a First Class. I remember because the first time I saw it bootlegged. I got it from the flea market, and I remember being like, oh, there's like a X-Men First Class? Like, what is this? And I watched it and it like blew my mind. So like, that probably also helps.
Oh, sure.
That
Were you
is
getting blindsided that way?
Yeah, and I also really like Matthew Vaughn. And there's just a flavor to that movie that I really like as a Bond fan too.
That's true too. Yeah, the '60s kind of kitschiness of it is great, and I don't think it gets enough credit for also being kind of a good stylized comic book movie. And in contrast to what Singer did, but still feeling like it could be, proto X-Men team in the same universe.
Mm-hmm. I also really like history nerd Matthew Vaughn, where like he comes in and it's not just that they're in the 60s, but like they're actually like flying around the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah,
I think all of that's really fun.
Really cool alternate history stuff.
Yeah, that's one thing I really liked. Like, this movie nobody cared about, but that's the thing that I really liked about his Kingsman prequel, where it was like we're like dropping them like into important moments in World War One, and not just in World War One. And I'm like, I don't know, as a history, like somebody that really likes that stuff. Like, that's all really fun to me.
Robert says the stuff with Mystique and Charles never really landed for me. I never liked that either.
I just never liked
the idea of him raising her,
Mystique, like even going that far back.
Yeah. And I've complained a lot about the argument that Magneto makes for why she shouldn't have to change shape. That I'm not going to get into it again, but it's weird. It's kind of icky.
And it was also just really nice to me to just have an X-Men film without Wolverine.
Yeah.
And I'll always be thankful for that.
More of it for me was just proving to the masses that aren't real familiar with X-Men outside of the movies that you don't need him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And we get him for a cameo, and his cameo's really fun because of that.
Yeah, that's right. And it made me fall in love with McAvoy, because that was an actor I wasn't familiar with before that.
Mm-hmm. No, he and Fassbender are like so perfect.
And everybody talks about how great of somebody said in the chat, superhero origin story that is, and it's all about Magneto, and his arc in that is wonderful. But I'm such an Xavier fan that's what I latch on to a lot more. Mm-hmm. And so for me, like Fassbender is facilitating McAvoy more than the other way around.
I mean, they both get like fun things to do, you know. Like Magneto's hunting down Nazis, and Xavier's like, "That's a groovy mutation, baby." They're both perfect.
Yeah, you never thought you'd see Xavier, like guzzling beer down like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you never thought you'd get.
Mystique comes in and ruins it by changing her one eye color. This is why no one likes Mystique.
Yeah, God, she's insufferable, which is why the casting was correct.
It was just objectively true.
It was just the right thing to do. Bob the Hunt, $2 super chat. I mean, I'm not. Wow, am I gonna make that joke? Austin would straight up make that joke.
Do it.
I mean, I'm not gonna say that. I don't know if I'm gonna make that joke.
I'm not gonna say. Yeah, I'm not gonna make that joke.
Austin, I'm not gonna say that.
She's a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no broke. No.
I'll say it. I'm not gonna say that I want that Subway poster from Apocalypse with him choking Mystique out in my house. Like, I'm not gonna say that.
But I mean, you're also not saying that.
I'm not saying that. Bob the Hunt, $2 super chat. Austin 2 review of Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah. At some point, we're gonna.
Could you translate that one? Is he just looking forward to you eventually doing that movie? Is it because I like it and you don't? And
yeah,
is that gonna be the new Batman Forever or the new what's another movie that
Wonder Woman?
Yeah, Wonder Woman. Yeah, more Wonder Woman.
Well, after that, he said, "I can't wait to hear Austin's unique take on Amazing Spider-Man." I don't think I have a unique take. I think a lot of people don't like that.
No,
movie.
I think that's a polarizing movie. I think there's two sides on it.
Yeah, I think people maybe cooled a little bit on it after No Way Home. Like, I feel like there was a lot more defenders of it after that. But
here's how my recollection of it goes, Austin.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Amazing Spider-Man came out and people just didn't care. Like,
yeah.
I'm sure there were people that saw it that were like, no, that's not what I want, I'm out. But I felt like it was more dismissive than vitriolic, and I felt really justified at the time, vindicated for the argument I made in videos saying we needed to wait longer before we rebooted. That's what I remember. And then the vitriol came with Amazing Spider-Man 2, where you had people that came out of the woodwork that probably didn't even voice an opinion about the first one that was like, well, now we're stuck in this crappy franchise with this insane, like almost offensive movie in just how spelled out everything is and how ridiculous the villains are and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I remember I was 14 when Amazing Spider-Man came out. Like, I watched it and I was like, "Oh yay, it's Spider-Man! I love this." And then it was like over time where I'm like, "Wait a minute, this isn't great."
Well, that sounds like exactly what I had with Man of Steel, except without the ambiguous British accent you just did.
Well, I'm Canadian. We're like ambiguously British.
That's great.
Yeah, so.
Robert, the Magneto line should have been, have you ever looked at a Batman Funko Pop collection and thought you should cover it up?
Beautiful.
All right, folks, we're going to get going. Let's try to remember where we left off next time. We'll write it down somewhere.
Yeah, especially because we're at like a weird number next. We're
This
at
is
26.
a weird number.
Okay, my 26 is big enough. I'll remember where we were.
My 26 is pretty big too. I mean,
Yeah,
we're in that place now. We got a quarter of the list left. Everything from now on is going to be pretty major for the most part, I would assume. Although maybe not on Austin's end. He could have some things that he just loves that much that are obscure or bizarre picks, but I thought Howard the Duck would be that, and we've already got that. So
Yeah, I'm also willing to bet 26 will be a surprise for people, where they will think it'll be higher on my list, but it's not. But we'll see.
okay, well, we will do more of this as soon as we possibly can, and try to finish it up in the not too distant future. You've still got lots of time, probably, to get in your favorite top 50 so that we can do the communal list if people aren't completely sick to death of us talking about favorite superhero movies, or even just superhero movies in general. This may be the series where people finally go, okay, Cap, it's time to move on for the superhero movie thing.
You're gonna have to start reviewing Lamps, because no one wants to hear you talk about superhero movies anymore.
Now I'm just going to talk about superhero lamps.
I give this lamp a villain.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan, and this was Austin, the Day Ghost.
Good night, everybody.